War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. George Orwell wrote that in 1949. And if you've been watching the news in 2026, you already know that's not fiction anymore. A woman was shot in the head by a federal agent while sitting in her car. The government said she ran him over. The video evidence says otherwise. And if you don't think that's straight out of 1984, well, you clearly haven't read it yet. So let's fix that. Welcome to the Bimbo Book Club, where we read books that explain how we got here. This dystopian surveillance state, up is down, truth is whatever the government says it is moment that we're all living through. And we talk about them like real people. No fancy words, no academic gatekeeping, just a bimbo with a book and some thoughts. And we're starting with George Orwell's 1984 because, well, if you've never read it, now's the time. And if you have read it, I promise you this hits different than when you read it in high school. Because this dystopian novel isn't fiction anymore. It might as well be a documentary. I chose this as our first book because it's short, it's readable, and you don't need a political science degree to understand it. You just need to be paying attention to what's happening around you. And if you're watching this, well, I'm guessing you are. In 1984, the ruling party has 3 slogans. They're plastered everywhere, on buildings, on their screens, in every piece of propaganda. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. And ignorance is strength. And the point of these slogans is not that people believe them because they make sense. The point is that people believe them because they've heard them so many times that questioning them feels insane. The repetition is the mechanism. If you hear something enough, your brain just absorbs it. It stops sounding wrong. And I need you to think about that for a second. Because right now, in America, we are being told by the government, by federal agencies, by the president, that a woman sitting in her car was a threat to a fully armed federal agent, that she ran him over. Renee Nicole Good was shot 3 times by an ICE agent named Jonathan Ross on January 7th in Minneapolis. She was shot in the head while sitting in her car, and within minutes, the federal government was telling us that she was the aggressor, that the agent had acted in self-defense, and that he was hospitalized. But the video is right there. We can all see it. He walked around the car. He was standing to the front left. She started to drive forward to the right, away from him. He fired 3 shots. The independent autopsy found that she was shot in the head near the temple, and they blocked a doctor from reaching her while she was still alive. That is the Ministry of Truth shit. That is Orwell's party telling you that what you saw with your own eyes is not actually what happened. War is peace. The agent who shot an unarmed woman in the head was the victim. Freedom is slavery. The people protesting in the streets are the threat. Ignorance is strength. Stop asking questions and let the adults handle it. And then, 17 days later, they killed Alex Pretty, a 37-year-old ICU nurse at a veterans hospital. He was filming federal agents and directing traffic. He stepped between an agent and a woman who'd been shoved to the ground. They pepper sprayed him. 6 agents pinned him down. 1 took his holstered gun away from him, and then they shot him while he was on the ground, in broad daylight, on camera. And the narrative from the government was already written before his body was even cold. He was armed. He was dangerous. They were just doing their jobs. Orwell wrote about this exact thing in 1949. The party doesn't just lie. It lies in a way that makes you question whether your own perception of a reality is valid. That's called doublethink, the ability to hold 2 contradictory beliefs at the same time. The video shows one thing, but the government says another. So maybe we're not seeing what I think I'm seeing? Maybe? That's not fiction. That's Tuesday. In 1984, every home has a telescreen. It's a screen that watches you. It's always on, you can't turn it off. The government uses it to monitor everything you do, everything you say, even your facial expressions, and the citizens just accept it because it's been there their whole lives. It's normal. Now, a few weeks ago, Amazon, which owns Ring, spent $8 million on a Super Bowl ad to tell you about their awesome network of AI-powered doorbell cameras that can now scan an entire neighborhood to find your lost dog. The feature is called Search Party. Isn't that so cute? Artificial intelligence scanning millions of cameras across the country to find Mr. Biscuits. Except in 2022, it came out that police departments could also access Ring camera footage without the owner's permission and without a warrant through a dedicated law enforcement portal. Ring said they'd stop, but then in October 2025, Ring signed a partnership with Flock Safety, a company that makes automatic license plate readers and surveillance tech specifically for law enforcement. In that same month, they then partnered with Axon, the company that makes tasers and body cams for the police. So the AI that's scanning every outdoor camera in your neighborhood for a golden retriever, that same system already has a feature called Familiar Faces that uses facial recognition to scan and categorize every person who walks past your door as known or unknown. And Search Party was enabled by default on every outdoor camera with a Ring subscription. You didn't have to opt in, they opted you in. Senator Ed Markey called it what it is. This isn't about dogs, it's about mass surveillance. The Electronic Frontier Foundation said nobody, including our furry friends, will be safer in Ring's surveillance nightmare. Someone on Twitter called this whole thing the Pornopticon, and honestly, that's better than anything I could have come up with. So anyway, now Ring cancelled this Flock partnership after the backlash. People were literally just ripping their cameras off their porches and posting videos of them doing it. But the AI? The facial recognition? The infrastructure? It's still there. The telescreen is your doorbell, and you bought it for yourself for like $99.99 or whatever you paid, and you mounted it on your own front porch. Orwell imagined that the government was going to be installing the surveillance. He didn't predict that we would be doing it voluntarily and be paying for it, and then defend it because it might find your dog. Now, in 1984, there's a concept called thought crime. And it's exactly what it sounds like. If you think the wrong thing, if you even look like you're thinking the wrong thing, you can be arrested, tortured, and disappeared. The thought police don't need you to commit an act. They just need to suspect that you disagree. And I used to read that and think, well, that's extreme. That would never happen. And then I watched people get investigated for what they posted on social media about the government. We're watching people get put on lists for attending protests. We've watched them talk about revoking voting rights from people whose IDs don't match. We're watching them build more detention facilities. Let's call them what they are: concentration camps. And people are being picked up off the street and disappearing. Their families don't know where they are. Their lawyers can't find them, and we're just supposed to be okay with that? Alex Pretty wasn't committing a crime. He was witnessing, he was filming. He saw a woman being shoved to the ground by a federal agent. He stepped between them, and they killed him for it. That is thought crime. Not the legal term, it's the Orwellian one, but the crime of seeing something wrong and refusing to look away. The crime of recording, the crime of being present and yet not compliant. In Oceania, the party's goal wasn't just to punish dissent. It was to make dissent so unthinkable, to make you so afraid that you censor yourself before anyone even has to come for you. The most efficient police state isn't one where they arrest everyone, It's the one where everyone polices themselves. So let me ask you a question. How many of you have thought twice about posting something political? How many of you have deleted a story or softened a caption or stayed home from a protest because you were afraid? How many of you right now are watching this and thinking, I agree with everything you're saying, but I would never share it? That's not paranoia. That's the intended effect. And it is working exactly as it is designed to. You don't need a thought police when you are already policing your own thoughts. And if that just made your stomach drop, good. That is why we read. That is why the Bimbo Book Club exists. Because the first step to resisting is understanding their playbook. It's just unfortunate that Orwell wrote this 77 years ago. Comment Book Club, and I'll send you the link to join us on Substack, where we're breaking this whole book down together. The thing about 1984 that stays with me isn't the surveillance. It's the acceptance. It's the way the people of Oceania just live with it. They go to work, they watch telescreens, they cheer at the 2-minute hate, they report the neighbors, and they don't fight back. It's not because they're stupid, but it's because the system has made resistance feel pointless. The party has created a world where truth doesn't matter because nobody has the energy to chase it anyway. And I feel that, and I know you do too. That bone-deep exhaustion of watching something so horrific happen on a Tuesday and knowing that by Thursday there'll be something worse. And by Saturday, you'll barely remember it because your brain literally cannot hold this much grief and rage at once. A woman gets shot in the head by a federal agent 3 weeks later. It's barely in the news cycle because 17 other fucking nightmares have happened since. That's by design. Orwell understood that tyranny doesn't need to convince you that it's right. It just needs to exhaust you into silence. It needs you to doom scroll at 2 a.m. with this heavy, numb, helpless feeling in your chest because a person who's helpless doesn't organize. They don't show up. They don't resist. They just survive. And surviving is not the same thing as living. And that is what 1984 is really about. It's not a warning about some distant dystopian future. It's a mirror, showing us what happens when people stop believing that they have the power to change anything. When the weight of it gets so heavy that looking away feels like self-preservation. And I get it. I really do. But I refuse to accept it, which is why we are reading. So here's what we're doing. Bimbo Book Club. We're reading 1984 first because it's short, it's accessible, and honestly, it's probably one of the most relevant books you could pick up right now. You don't need to be a reader. You don't need to be political. You just need to be a person who's looking around going, what the fuck is happening? If that's you, welcome, you're in. This is a book club for the rest of us. For people that didn't necessarily finish school. People who didn't study political science. For the bimbos, the bartenders, the tattoo artists, the drag queens, the people who've been made to feel like this stuff is above their pay grade. It's not. Orwell didn't write this for academics. He wrote this as a warning for everyday people. And we're going to read it like everyday people, with snacks and opinions and definitely swearing. And I'm breaking this whole thing down on my Substack. What it means, what's happening right now that mirrors it, and what we can actually do with this information besides just feel terrible. We're going to talk about it, we're going to argue about it, we're going to feel our feelings about it, and we're going to do it together, because that's the thing that the party in 1984 fears the most. People reading, thinking, and talking to one another. Comment Book Club, and I'll send you the link to my Substack. The book is like $10, or you can download it free if you just type in free PDF of 1984. You can read it on like a tablet, your computer. You can find it at a library. That's a real thing that still exists. Honestly, it's like 77 years old. You can seriously find a copy in about 30 seconds. So grab your copy, start reading it, and let's have conversations that would make Big Brother very, very uncomfortable. Because the thing that Orwell understood that we need to hold on to right now, the opposite of oppression isn't fighting, it's thinking, it's knowing, it's reading a book and going, wait, I've seen this before. That's where resistance starts. Not with a revolution, but with a book club. So I'll see you on Substack.